Good morning and welcome. This is Tom Merker. I'm Executive Director for Product Engineering here at Springs Window Fashions, and I participate directly with the Window Covering Manufacturing Association in the development of this new safety standard. And what we're going to talk about today is the changes that we're transitioning through right now with the safety standard and the updates to our products. This standard, which published January 9th of 2018, we have a compliance date within the industry of December 15th. And Springs is targeting to complete all transitions before November 15th. And internally, we're trying to make sure that all the design changes, label changes, and that are done by mid-October. That gives me 30 days to audit and 30 days in advance of the final compliance date. Keep in mind that these design changes, and I'm not sure if anybody on the phone is for Canada, but the design changes will be the same in US and Canada, but the label and warning changes are impacting US only. Canada has not completed their transition to a different standard, and so that is still a bit up in the air. The major changes that are affecting window coverings today is that stock will be cordless only. And that includes product that's packaged for retail and or cut down. So items that are actually sold in retail are the most common. They could be short cords. They would no longer be having warning labels and tags on them because they're considered cordless, like a vest for kids. And it's important to realize that stock products that are manufactured before December 15th of this year can still be sold at retail. Again, that likely does not affect anybody that's on the call right now. Additionally, white goods, traverse rods are considered custom products. There will be an addendum to the current standard that identifies corded traverse rods as being a component of a custom product. You can get them in baton draw, which is cordless, or they will come with continuous loop systems and hold-on devices. So they still have to be compliant for that purpose. But because they're adjustable for the application, they're viewed as being a custom component of the product. Custom products, which can be ordered as either corded or cordless, will have the following cord and tilt control changes. So the default will be that the operating cord length, and this applies to free hanging cords only. So products that typically include shades with cord locks or blinds with cord locks. We're going to limit the length to 1/3. The standard actually states 40%. We're going with 1/3 because our cellular pleated classic Roman had transitioned to this cord length about 4 years ago, and we've not had issues with consumers rejecting that cord length. So we're going to make that our standard across all product lines. For horizontal and vertical blinds, where you have your choice of wand tilt or cord tilt. Wand tilt will be the default or the standard. Cord tilt is optional. I should also state that we will continue to allow custom lengths on any operating cord. We have always done that. We'll continue to do that. And in the case of the wand tilt versus cord tilt will be optional. So that is still available. There will be new size limits as a result of these changes, and those are highlighted in product bulletins. Keep in mind that if consumers don't think about other, optional cord lengths, they will get the default, and we will not be remaking blinds as a result of that. So it'll be important to communicate that through to the customers so that they understand custom lengths are available. Additional changes include 3-on-1 corded blinds and shades will no longer be available. You can continue to order these. We had to pull this from our system, but we are reinstating it for an undetermined amount of time. We're targeting October 1st, but we may be flexible in that. So that'll be back online beginning Monday of next week. We're handling those as out of specs today. So if you were to order one, we can still build it. But the primary reason why these are being dropped is that cord cleats was a new addition to the standard. Although Springs has been offering cord cleats as an option for a number of years, it's now a requirement in the standard for all operating cords, accessible operating cords. And as a result, the 3-on-1 and the cording in the middle of the blind, there typically is no place to mount the cord cleat to use that as a way of managing the cords. And so it has been determined that this is the safest way, is to just not provide that type of product. Corded bottom up, top down 2-on-1 will no longer be available, as there's no way to mount the cord cleats for the center. So for the same situation where you'd have a bottom rail operating cord and a mid rail operating cord would be in the middle of that configuration, that will cause problems. Where will you mount it with the cord cleats? Corded bottom up, top down products will follow the same cord length restrictions as the standard operating cord for the bottom rail, but it'll be judged when the bottom rail and the mid rail are both at their lowest position, which means that the operating cords will be their shortest. That way they will match at that orientation. This will be added to the standard as well with that drapery hardware update. So it'll be clarified in an appendix in a coming version. On cord release devices, if we join cords today for 2-corded shades, which we do for cellular pleated and classic Roman, we use a static joiner, meaning it doesn't release. We will be going to a cord release device, the same device that's used on bottom up, top down intermediate rails, will be used then on the operating cord for the bottom rail on 2-corded only. Once we go to 3 cords, we no longer are required to use a cord release device. And so we will use a static joiner, and we will do the same, which we already do on 1-inch, 2-inch soft shades, natural shades. The snap tassel that's used solely on cellular, we will discontinue because of having to go to a cord release device on 2 cords. Separate cords are still a valid compliance path. That's why on those products, 1-inch, 2-inch soft, natural, we go separate cords for 2 cords. It's only cellular pleated and classic Roman where we join on 2 cords. These design changes transitions began the week of 8/6, and they should be complete by October 8th on the rollout. Warning labels and tags, I'm going to show you in the next slide the graphic and the content for those warning labels. But the warning on cordless products has been eliminated on the bottom rail. We will no longer be required to place warning tags on pleated and horizontal cordless or on retail packaging, which doesn't apply for you. And then the warning tag that's used on the rear of Roman will be eliminated. Those products that I just described, pleated, horizontal, and Roman, still must be compliant, but they will no longer require the tag to indicate that there's that potential hazard by pulling out that inner cord. All warning labels and tags for the US have been updated, and we've started the transition beginning this week with Solar Roller, and they will transition through the week of October 8th. This is a rolling change. Keep in mind, Canadian warning labels are not changing at this time. Even though the designs are changing, we are required to continue to label as we have been for Canada. And finally, the origin label or the manufacturing label has a couple of updates. We were compliant with all the new items like adding the month to the year and the full custom order information that's always been on our work tags and in the stickers that go on headrails or on tubes. What was new was adding the C for custom to custom products. We underwent that change. It was a rolling change, and it was complete the end of May. And I'll have an example of what that would look like in a minute. So on the screen now, you can see the current warning labels. You can see that the graphic is much more depictive of the hazard. And believe it or not, this is actually a toned down version of what consumer advocates in the CPSC were pushing for. There's one warning label for all products that have operating cords. Then there are just 2 tags. There used to be 10. Actually, there's 3 tags, but we don't offer roll-up shades. So there's a 3rd tag for just roll-up shades. But Springs offers either products that will get the all operating cords. So if it's a free hanging cord, it will get the tag on the left. And if it's a continuous cord loop with a hold down device to look at the tag on the right. And then for merchandising, this is the warning that we will place on our websites. It'll actually be trilingual. This is showing just English, Spanish, but it'll include Canadian French. And this will be placed on websites and in merchandising materials. So as we update sample books or have refreshes, we will be replacing the current warning that's in the book with this one. On the tag that goes in the headrail or on the tube, all the order detail, the manufacturer, and the manufacturing date is on this tag. What is new is that C for custom, which is following the assembled in Mexico line. I'll take a break and we'll answer some questions.
All right, so we've got a couple of questions coming through in the chat. One question is there any way to override these restrictions when ordering for customers that are more detail oriented?
I'm not sure that I fully understand the question. So as a manufacturer, we are responsible to be compliant to the standards. So we will have the defaults. The consumer can have the option to choose not to default to wand tilt or not to default to a 1/3 cord length. And those options will be available to when you're doing the order entry. So if I haven't answered your question, you may have to change it a little bit and ask again.
Thank you. Can you tell us the rationale behind the switch to wands on faux wood blinds under 35 1/4 inches? These are single cords with no knots or joints with no strangulation issues.
So I think the question is, why can't I get cord tilt under 35 inches? We've been handling those as out of specs and converting them over to cord tilt. What we've put into our system is for blinds that are under 37 inches, we will have cord length for cord tilt at 12 inches. So as you go shorter from 37 inches to say 20 inches, the cord length on cord tilt will remain at 12 inches. The reason why we have to restrict that length is because you have to have at least 11 3/4 of an inch to fully function cord tilt. And so although we had placed a restriction that said you couldn't get it under that amount, we're viewing this as a custom cord length, and you're choosing a custom option to have cord tilt. So therefore we will comply with limiting the length, but still giving the cord tilt option.
Thank you. Another question. Are we opening ourselves up to liability issues if we are overriding the new default options?
Again, the standard allows that the product has a default, but a custom option is acceptable. So no, there should be no additional liability as a result of choosing a custom length.
Are cord cleats mandatory to install?
The standard is a manufacturer standard, so we are required to provide the cord cleats. There is no standard for installation in the United States. Just as a reference, there is standards in the UK and in Australia where there is an installation requirement, and there they do require a hold down or a cord cleat to be installed. But in the US, it is not mandatory. So my recommendation is that you discuss this with the consumer to make sure that they understand the value and the point of using cord cleats to keep cords inaccessible.
Is this requirement in the new information being released soon?
Maybe the question is asking about how are we publishing this information. So we are launching the changes by product line. These are the approximate dates. Disregard the PCR number, that's an internal number. That's just how we track the changes. But you can see that we started going live with product lines the week of August 6th, and we are continuing into September, mid to late September. So the intent is that we will have all product lines configured over to be compliant by the beginning of October. So are there additional questions I can answer?
One question, kind of specific, but since we've got some time, what is the shortest cord tilt length for out of spec?
The shortest cord tilt length for out of spec. Well, the cord tilt will not function below 12 inches. So I'd have to say that the cord lengths will be no less than 12 inches, regardless of the product height.
We did send out a bulletin last Monday that outlines all of these changes. And that is also, it outlines these changes are on SWF Connect and it's listed by product. So if you go to SWF Connect on the upper navigation under news, there's a section for bulletins, and that's where you can find this one from last week that includes details on all of this information. And we'll also be adding some additional information on SWF Connect. We've got a product safety page, so that will be updated with this new information as well. There are some questions for 3-on-1s. When the standard option is cordless, will there still be an upcharge for the cordless lift given there is no other option?
I don't believe that I can answer that question because I don't manage the pricing and how we take that to market. So I think that's the question you're going to have to take back to the product management group.
If the cords are chosen and considered out of spec, will the warranty need to be waived?
Again, cords are a custom option. I'm assuming that you're talking about cord tilt. And so the standard allows for the default will be wand. You can choose cord tilt. So therefore, it's not an out of spec. Our systems will accommodate that. Keep in mind that you can, as much as you can have a custom length on your operating cord for raising and lowering the blind or shade, for cord tilt, you could also choose a custom length for those operating cords for tilt.
Okay, so we got a couple of other questions that we'll answer. I'll quick read them off. So even if the horizontal blind is 35 inches in height, then we can override the cord tilt length and still order it, because as of now, you cannot.
The system is being updated to allow blinds that are under 37 inches. So anything 37 inches and below can get cord tilt, and the cord tilt length will be 12 inches regardless of the height of the blind. Of course, you could choose custom lengths. If you want it to be 14 inches or 18 inches, you can do that as well. So the system is being programmed to allow for that. That's a forever type thing. So that's going forward.
Another question and comment. Customer service just informed us that the wand tilt will be the only option for any multi-blind. They did perform it out of spec, but will this be the case going forward?
It's my understanding that you could get a 2-on-1. So a 2-on-1 blind, the operating cords will be to the far right and far left, and you could have cord tilt or wand tilt to the middle, because those cords don't hang to the floor like an operating cord does. So people typically don't mount cord cleats for their cord tilt cords.
Okay, we don't see any other questions coming through, so we will end this meeting. Again, thank you for joining, and if you have any questions after the fact, please send them through. Thank you.